Hello. Welcome to the 2023 Q1 landed market analysis. So for today, right, maybe this training session will address the burning question you have on whether is it time to finally stop waiting. Okay, maybe we can go on to the next slide. Yeah, and of course we have Willie, our main speaker for today. He's the head of the Huttons Landed Division. He has graduated from NTU with business, is a certified ACTA trainer, and has more than 12 years of real estate experience. So Huttons Landed Division was also founded by him, and it is one of the most prolific landed teams in Singapore, which has transacted more than 300 properties. And recently, he has also won the 11 consecutive top 100 annual producers just 2 days ago, and of course the Millionaire Producer in 2021. And of course, he's also featured in Money Mind and Edge. So you can move slide. Yeah. So we have the landed prince scaling new heights, Edge Prop, featured by Edge Prop and Channel News Asia. And of course, we would like this session to be more interactive. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop any of the panelists any questions, or you can feel free to type in the comments. And of course, without further ado, I'll hand the time over to Willie.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, good evening, everyone. On behalf of Huttons Landed Division, I welcome you once again to our quarterly consumer webinar, held online once again. With me today is, of course, my trusted team of my team leaders and my advisors. They are respectively Michael, in charge of District 16. I have Cindric, in charge of my West Region, District 21, 23. Will, in charge of Central Region, 10, 11. Jason, in charge of District 13, 14. Sean, in charge of our Northeast Region, 19, 20, 28. And last but not least, Justin, in charge of District 15. So basically, all along we have basically been analyzing the market data, and with basically the help of all the district ICs here. Pardon me, sorry. Got a sore throat on this side. Okay, we just move to the next slide. If you have any questions, by the way, like what Keith has mentioned, please feel free to just key into the questions, all right? Because I think my panel of experts here, in fact, they are a lot more in tune with the ground with respect to every district more than I do, okay? So, and of course, we form part of the entire Huttons Landed Division. Altogether, we have about 70 plus of us now, almost close to 80 people. What is important here is, if this is the first time attending this, is all these QR codes at the bottom. All right, if this is the first time attending and the first time you're hearing about us, do screenshot this, or you can just screen grab, and then you can actually just scan this to access all our social media portals. So the social media, basically, we are in not just a website, with our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and recently also TikTok as well. So from there, you can see more about what the team does, the activities, the houses that we market, etc. Right? So we have not, of course, this is not the first time we are doing this. We have been, besides helping our clients to search for houses, find good buys, but of course, importantly, sell their houses as well. We also actually always attempt to always understand how the market is doing. All right, important to understand, to have the background information, and we've been doing this since a few years ago, and we have consistently also published, all right, the results on a quarterly basis. And of course, now we have this opportunity to do webinars to connect with more audience like you. All right. So the last one we did was actually in January, and that gives a very holistic view of the entire full year results of 2022 versus the previous years. So if you have missed it, this is also available on YouTube as well. So you can scan the QR code here, and then it will bring you to the YouTube channel to go through this 1 hour, probably 1 hour and 40 minutes. It's very extensive insights into how 2022 in terms of landed market has performed. All right. Okay, so before we begin, just some quick disclaimer. First thing is, all the data that we gathered is as at 10th of April, just a few days ago. We mentioned this because the data will tend to run, so to speak, especially for the last previous month, all right? And of course, as we endeavor to provide as accurate information as possible, we hope that you do not hold anyone from Huttons Landed Division or from Huttons, any of Huttons consultant who has invited you, okay, responsible for any decision that's made, okay? But of course, we are always more than happy to help. All right, now before I begin, just a quick poll first to better understand the profile of all the attendees here. So can you just share with us if this is your first time attending this webinar? Pardon me. We'll just do a quick poll, 30 seconds. It's heartening always to see repeat attendees, but at the same time, of course, there are newcomers or new clients of us who joined. I think we welcome you as well. Okay, we have a good mix today, about 46-54%. Thank you so much, especially the newcomers. This is the first time attending. Do take this opportunity to ask, okay, as many questions as you want. We may not address them on screen, but a lot of the questions, if you can, with the panel of my teammates here, they can actually help to delve into it and, of course, answer your questions, all right, if any data is needed. Okay, now let's come to today's agenda. So we will first start to give you what has happened in the first quarter of 2023 this year. All right, followed by the various regions update. Before that will take about an hour before we start to address the topic for today. Now, on this note, on this question, right, is it time to finally stop waiting? I have clients who, for the first time, ask, really, are you referring to buyers or sellers, right? Owners or buyers, so to speak. It is not left ambiguous for a reason, okay? Because this is actually addressed to both buyers and sellers. Of course, a lot of people will think, but stop waiting, is it just to buy? Are there people still sitting on the sideline? But for today, especially, we're also taking this opportunity to address also some sellers who are thinking, should they stop waiting for a better price, for example, all right? Or should they accept basically the current market price now and move on, all right? It's a very interesting topic where for the first time, I think we are dwelling into a lot deeper. In fact, it's the deepest analysis we've ever done, because instead of just covering the various regions, the 11 districts, we are also, for the first time again, bring some insights into the rest of the other districts that we are not focusing on, all right? And then we will attempt to end this by 9:30 with the conclusion and Q&A, okay? All right, so is everyone ready? Let me just see how's the attendance right now. Okay, good. So before we start, I think these are the first report that you see here, right? Early signs of rental resale market slowing. I don't know what are your sentiments if you're in the market now. If you are a seller or a buyer, you probably have been following all this news, all right? What is very conflicting versus the last many quarters of successive growth, right, during the pandemic, is that we are starting to see more and more, all right, contradicting or basically opposing reports. For example, like this is the first one. I think a lot of people since the beginning of the year or since our last pandemic, I think we're already anticipating a slowdown in the market due to many reasons, right? From global economy to local economic slowdown and rising interest rate, et cetera, all right? So this report is not a surprising, all right? So this came out just about 2 weeks ago, and yet just a week later, all right, you start to see newspaper reporting that despite all the so-called doom and gloom, that private property prices have continued to rise. And we're not talking about marginal rise of 0 point something or 1%, right? A 3.2% rise in terms of value in a very slow so-called quarter is considered quite substantial. So what is actually happening, especially in the landed market? This is what we're attempting to address today, and a lot of us, we are, I think, for the first time, so dwelling a lot deeper into the numbers to see where the disparity lies. Okay, do you now, as basically part of the audience, or you're an active player in the market, do you see prices actually rising, and do you see a slowdown, or do you see actually the opposite? Later we'll explain this and more. All right. Okay, so I had a client once who mentioned this statement to me just probably 2 months ago, right? 2 months ago. I don't know whether he or she is here. Happened to be a seller, all right? And of course, we were negotiating basically about the price that the property should rise, should be marketed as, and of course, what's the reserve price. And what this client told me was that, really, a rising, because we're talking about the different types of houses, right? This happens to be a slightly larger detached house. And obviously, in terms of the expectation of this client, in terms of the long-term prospects of landed market is obviously positive. So the statement he made was, really a rising tide will raise all boats, all right? Or rising tide raises all boats, meaning that regardless of where you are, all right, whether you are in terms of the location of the landed property, or regardless of what type of houses, for example, which we always attempt to actually analyze, if the market is positive in the long run, all right, or positive now, every part of the market, as long as your landed property, will increase. Okay, so I kept silent for a while, right? I kept silent for a while because while this has been true for the last probably 7, 8, if not 9 quarters, our successive growth, like I mentioned earlier, right? Pandemic, everything was rising. And in fact, on our analysis, you could see almost a seamless or very consistent trend across almost all districts of all types. The last 3 months, however, I think in terms of experience on the ground, I tend to be a bit hesitant, okay? Because what we are seeing now is that in terms of market activities, is not as robust. We see buyers who are a lot more hesitant, all right? And of course, in terms of transaction volume, all right, that has also taken a hit as well. Because prior to this, even in the last this consumer webinar, we have already addressed this, that we anticipated as early as even Q3 of last year, that this transaction volume will start to decrease, all right? But even with the successive reduction in the transaction volume, you still see that the price actually goes up, all right? But is this now, given the current situation, given the current more challenging situation, all right, or in terms of the environment now, does this still hold true, especially for the landed market, right? Let's take a look. So let's first take a look at the transaction volume, right? Transaction volume. Bear in mind, if this is the first time that you're seeing that we are actually using slightly different index, okay, to measure. We are actually using per square feet, which is a lot easier for a stakeholder like you are buying or selling to understand, because a lot of houses are actually transacted based on land price and based on per square feet versus the median price, so to speak. All right. So the first statistic that we can see now is indeed it has risen, okay, by 5.3%. to a record high of almost 1,009. This is at 1,873 per square feet now, all right, versus the previous quarter. Previous quarter was actually reaching about 1,008, but the whole of the last 3 quarters have brought the price to a new high. How about volume, right? How about volume? We mentioned it has declined successfully for about 2 quarters, and now this is the 3rd quarter of decline. No doubt, of course, the decline is very marginal now. We did about 300 units in Q4. And now the decline is actually about 7 units, all right, the 1st quarter. But on this note, please do also not forget that Q4 last year is one of the lowest ever. In fact, it was the lowest since the pandemic. There was this surge in basically holiday travel. They call this a revenge travel. Weather was bad, or it's a holiday season, etc. All right. So we expected actually Q1 this year to actually rebound back to the norm. All right, back to the norm. So you can see that even though what I mean by the norm, like last year in 2022, just to adjust for seasonality, all right, the 1st quarter last year, we actually did about, the market actually transacted about 400 over units. But compared to this year or compared to last year, this drop of 2% versus last quarter was actually almost 30% or more than 30% drop in terms of the decline. Yet the price still continues to go up. All right, if you have followed our previous webinars, you should know that, or just based on pure statistics, the decline or successive decline in quantity will always have a downward pressure in terms of the value. So what has actually happened, all right, in this quarter that allows this a so-called dichotomy, all right, where the volume goes down and the value increase to continue. So let's first take a look at, of course, that's a wonderful number, all right? If we were to dissect further into the various types of property, we can probably have a better idea. First one is by house type, okay? This is value by house type. Remember, it's 5.3%, but you can see that the contributor here is actually mainly detached houses, okay, which grew at a whopping almost 21%, more than 20% versus the last quarter, right? Whereby terrace and semi-D are a bit more subdued, growing at almost 3% each. Okay. Next one is how about volume-wise? All right. So while detached, the price goes up. This has actually been contributed by also an increase in the volume as well. So you can see compared to the other house types, semi-D and terrace, actually detached grew the most. Okay, and by most I mean almost at 40%, a 38% increase in terms of transacted volume. All right, semi-D has declined and also terrace as well. So compared to the last year, same quarter, so you can see that all 3 so-called house types have declined very significantly compared to 1 year ago. Now let's take a look at leasehold versus 99 years. All right, so leasehold versus 99 years, we all know that majority of the market is freehold and 999. And then, but we also have a significant so-called proportion, all right, of 99-year properties that actually contributed to the statistics. So for 99 years, so you can see here that the value has actually gone up a lot faster, all right, or a lot so-called more substantial than the total market, and by almost 13.2%. One of these main reasons is that, as I think buyers' affordability gets affected by the recent rise in interest rates, and of course later I'll share with you the recent rise in the buyer stamp duty as well. I think a lot of them starts to feel that actually 99-year leasehold properties being more affordable is also increasing a choice or a house type that a lot of upgraders, especially from condos and there's a HDB upgraders, all right, are looking at as well. So you see a very strong rise in terms of value, all right, almost 1,005 per square feet now on average. And the volume, although declined by 10%, the volume value has actually held up. Compared to freehold and 999, of course, this is more reflective of the total market. So you see volume being flat at almost 240 units, all right. The value has increased by 3.4%, less than the total average of 5.3%. So now freehold and 999 houses on average is now transacted almost at 2,000 per square feet. All right, 1967. Next, let's take a look at basically landed versus strata. Pardon me, there is some typo right here. This meant the 2023 quarter one. All right. So strata landed is another small part of the market, okay, which contributes to basically the transaction data. Although I think what's in terms of all analysis data will not include strata landed because of the way that the PSF is being calculated, all right? But if you are interested in strata, happen to be living one now, or you want to get your first affordable entry-level landed property, right, in a strata so-called cluster development, this will be interesting to you, all right? So just like the 99-year properties, you can see that in terms of volume, it has increased significantly, right, at almost 50 units by 26%. And value has also increased at the same time as well to almost 6.3%. Right now, strata landed in Singapore in general has already crossed the $1,000 mark. Okay, strata, by the way, also includes both 99 and as well as freehold, so that is regardless of the tenure. Now, next, new versus resale houses, right? New versus resale. So new houses, significantly, just like condos, have always a significant premium in terms of price versus the resale one. So how did this category perform? So first thing is, volume-wise, this has actually surpassed the previous quarter, okay, with a very significant rise of 20%, right? 20%, even though total market has declined, and value has increased by 3.2% as well. So this number is not new at almost 2,006 per square feet, because since about 4 quarters ago, we already breached the $2,500 per square feet mark, all right? But just bear in mind, for new houses, all this data tend to be a bit delayed, right? Meaning that actually a lot of this property were actually transacted earlier, and they are also they're only caveated once they achieve TOP. So quite a lot of these properties now that was actually transacted here, sorry, that was recorded this quarter were actually sold last year. Some were by us as well. So you might see a big difference between what is recorded here at 2005 versus what is being asking, all right, in the market now. A lot are actually above 3,000 already. Okay. So resale houses, which forms the bulk, okay, this is quite consistent at -4%, and then the value at almost 5%, 4.9%, right, across 1,008 and 273. This is almost 90% of all the transactions. Now, to summarize what we have just seen, okay, this is a very quick summary and a very holistic view of the entire market. Let's take a look at value first. At 5.3% increase, what are the main contributors, right, to this? First, you have the detached, right, at almost 21% versus semis and terrace. And then you also have the 99 years. Last but not least is the strata landed. Okay, so among all the categories, these are the 3 main drivers that actually push the value up to 5.3%. Okay, next, in terms of volume, slight decline of -2%. We can see that actually detached is the one that actually helps to push the entire volume, right, to maintain, because it has actually grown by 38%, and also new houses, okay, new houses, even though it's a 3-unit increase, this is significant against the backdrop of the resale houses declining, okay. And then last but not least is also strata landed. Now, if you start to see a pattern here, this is quite interesting. All right. So you have the two extreme ends in terms of affordability or in terms of price. You have the most entry level one, strata, and as well as the 99 years actually increasing in terms of value and volume. And then you have the new ones, which is on the other end, at the spectrum in terms of PSF especially, right, driving the market. So is that common in a regular market? I would say no. This is the first time we're actually seeing a phenomenon like this. Could it be linked to affordability? But then how do you explain then more people buying the most costly, right, in terms of PSF, all the brand new houses? We will take a closer look later. Okay. One reason or one way to basically further understand this is to analyze the market based on regions and districts. Okay, regions and districts. So what we mean, because those are just house types across the entire market, but what makes this a lot more interesting is to see how the various districts perform, right? Now, before we go into that, we just do a quick poll here to maybe you can share with us among the many districts, landed districts available, which are the ones that you are the most keen in, or are you thinking of exploring either for purchase or for sale? The districts mentioned here are basically all the key districts. I'll explain a bit later, all right? If your chosen district is not here, just put under others. Okay, I just realized our poll only has set 10 choices, so others is not there. So if yours is not within this, you can don't need to actually vote. All right. So from here, what is clear is that we have, I think the most popular is District 15. Okay, almost 50% of you are interested in that. All right. I think Justin here, his eyes are open. And then we have District 10, 11. All right, about 41%. Okay, about 41%, then followed by District 28. Okay, quite interesting. There's some interesting development in District 28 as well. Okay. Okay, let me just share these results. Can you all see the results? Right. So we have District 15, 10, 11, and 28. Okay, good. Not that we will skew the findings or analysis another way. All right. So this will be interesting for us to, we probably will expect more answers on these few districts in a while. Okay, so let's move on. With this in mind, okay, now let's take a look at all the major districts that we mentioned. These 11 districts are basically our GTA. GTA means our core geographical area. All right. What is interesting is that in the last many quarters, actually, this 11 districts account for about 75 to 80%. But this quarter, particularly, we see actually increase in terms of the weightage. Now it's about 85% of all transactions come from these 11 districts. All right. What is worth noting here is the top districts, okay, top performing districts, even though the total market actually increased by 5.3%, you realize that you see more red, right? You see more red than blue, which is very uncommon, especially during the pandemic. So out of these 11 districts, the top 3 districts in terms of value increase is District 21, District 16, as well as District 28. Okay, District 21, 16, and 28. We have specifically chosen to actually put them in the various regions, okay, so that you can classify different types. And you can see they happen in different regions, okay, different regions, right, with the exception of Central later, which we will explain. So why is this so? Okay, why is this so? Next, let's take a look at the transaction volume, right? Transaction volume. Pardon me. Okay, you can see this one's slightly different. Just now we saw that value has pardon me. All right. So you can see, for example, District 10, 11, there's a drop in terms of PSF, all right, per square feet in terms of value. But for volume wise, you see Central region, including a bit of West, which is District 21, close to the Bukit Timah area. These 3 districts actually recorded not just the strongest, but a very significant rise in terms of the transaction volume, all right, in this first quarter versus the previous one, all right. And then you can see the entire Central region, right, occupying, basically contributing to almost a big bulk of this increase. When in terms of the poorest, quietest district, you have District 14, okay, and actually which then brings the entire East region almost like, again, for the first time, that usually East region is one of the most active ones, but in this coming quarter, the last quarter, you see the East region actually underperforming compared to Central, West, and the Northeast region. All right. Interesting here to note is that you can see the non-GTA regions, which is basically the rest of all the other districts that we don't cover, all right, actually dropped by 62%, right? 62%. This might be a shift in terms of clients or buyers becoming more and more selective. We did mention in the previous webinar, right? One word of caution or some prediction is that as the market becomes more saturated, more selective, clients will become more selective or picky about basically the type of houses or where they are located. And this top 11 districts being more central, being closer to amenities, it is no surprise to us that actually more the transactions, the proportion of transactions that they host actually increase in this coming quarter. All right. Okay, so I come back to this statement again, right? Is it no longer accurate for the landed market? I think the previous slides have actually shown you. You see, I think a lot of disparity across different districts, across the different house types as well. All right. So one main reason I think later you can see is that as people start to become more discerning, and in terms of both not just the location, price range, and house types, you start to see differing performance across these different house types in the various areas. Now, one thing to take note of is Singapore landed market. Singapore, though, is small. Now, the landed property market is one of the most complex, right? One of the most complex, because unlike condos where you have almost quite homogeneous products, all right, within a certain condos, or even within condos, within the same district, they can be considered quite similar generally. But for landed properties, can be just one road across, or of course, the various differs from a different district. You can see a lot of difference in terms of their popularity, in terms of their demand, and of course, in terms of the behaviors of also the sellers, in terms of the expectations of the price. All right. So this quarter is probably the first quarter that we see since the pandemic to see such a distinct difference. All right. So we can no longer say that, just have a sweeping statement. If the market is good, long-term prospect is good, every district will rise and every house types or every category, right, will rise in terms of, or will go together in tandem with the overall perspective. Okay. To understand this further, this is where I will hand over to my various experts, okay, my district ICs, right, to give you some highlights in the various regions and districts. Okay, this is where if you have questions, take this opportunity to also ask as well. Due to time constraint, like in any, so all our previous webinars will be only highlighting 3 main points, okay, but every district actually we do a very in-depth analysis as much as I don't know, 50 pages per district. All right. So this, I will invite again my teammates and my district ICs from the various districts to come, right? Starting with basically the East region. So this, I have District 13, Jason.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Willie. Hi, I'm Jason. Yeah, good evening to everyone once again. Yeah, just for the benefit of the rest of the new one attending this, just a brief so-called outlook of these the district area. We have District 13, mainly this area like Brother Heights, this area, and followed by Sinet, McPherson, and McPherson Garden. So majority of the transaction we will say you will see in Sinet, Brother Heights, and McPherson. Yeah, okay. These are the 3 main highlights that I would like to share for D13. Mainly, as you can see from the chart, we are seeing what we call a mixed reaction on average sales value versus the average PSF. As you can see on one side, especially the semi-D and detached, you are seeing the price going up easily like 15% up to the what we call detached is size as 63. On the other side, we are seeing the PSF actually dropping. Yeah, so there's some reaction, mixed reaction on that. On the second one, second highlights, as you can see on this average sales value, generally for terrace, we are seeing some adjustment this time round. Yeah, and generally we see, especially the what we call McPherson Garden Estate and CNET, not so rustic except for the what you call McPherson Estate. Yeah, probably these are one of the reasons, because right now a bit slowed down. Buyers are more cautious. Next one to share. Overall, today the so-called PSF on the general D13, we are still seeing generally the PSF is still more than 1,008, as what Willie have shared earlier. Generally, PSF is hovering around more than 1,007 PSF on general whole of Singapore, and in D13 we are seeing more than 1,008 PSF, as you can see on the charts here. Okay, moving forward, I will go into sharing with you D14. Again, D14, as you can see, the highlights here, these are the few areas, mainly Kembangan Estate. This is where so-called one of the bigger portion of the sales. Next one, followed by Eunos. And lastly is the Geylang. Geylang and D14 and D15 quite close. So beside this is actually D14 on the East Coast or this. So yeah. So overall, you can see what Willie have mentioned on the transaction drop. D14 is one of the so-called worst or rather sharp drop in terms of so-called transaction. As you can see, it's almost 40% overall compared to Q4. And for Terrace itself, it dropped as much as 50%. And generally, as I mentioned just now, Kembangan is one of the most transaction. And as you can see, they affected almost 70%. Second highlights to share, again, on the pricing, the average sales value versus the PSF. On one side, we are still seeing on the price going up, as you can see on semi-D and detached. On the other hand, we see the PSF dropping. Yeah. So overall, we are seeing a mix as compared to Terrace, but Terrace, that's why the PSF is still considered going on the upside. Especially here, we are still seeing a sharp rise of little bit increase of the what we call PSF to about 6%. Lastly, I'm sharing with you the last highlight for this overall in terms of revenue. I mean, so-called the price range. We are seeing more pricing shifting towards the 3 to 4.9 million as compared to the previous quarter, which actually most of them, I think we still covering the wide range of up to almost 7 million. So there's on the other side, actually, basically the price actually dropped on D14 generally for the what you call price range moving this 3 to 4.9 million. Yeah, that's all for me. I'll pass to D15.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, I'm Justin. I'll be sharing with you three main highlights for District 15. Let's jump into District 15. Now, what we do is that we slice District 15 into 4 zones. The far left, on your left, is the Katong. Katong is the most prime district location or area or zone in District 15. It then subdivided by Tanjung Katong Road will be next will be Chuchet. Then Chuchet divided again by Steel Road will be Teluk Kurau, and Sikap Park Connector is the one that actually separated Franco and Sikap on the right hand side. So I'm going to bring you more the 3 highlights for District 15 now. Take a look at the PSF, a sharp rise in PSF for detached in District 15. Despite that, the prices, the volume has dropped a lot, but for detached 15 in this D15, they are still very sought after. As you can see, the volume has actually, in terms of the value, has actually increased 33% from 13 million to 17.6 million. Not to forget about the PSF. For Sikap has increased by 32 million to 2,002 PSF. especially for Katong, let me bring you back to Katong. The value for the Katong has increased from the value from 11 million to 24 million. Mainly was due to there's one plot of 25,000 square feet land was sold at Wilkinson at 2161 PSF, which actually set a benchmark for a land cost in Katong side. So hence, moving forward, we will see the value of detached houses in Katong will be increasing. Next, following by the transaction volume, the second highlights, we see a drop in transaction volume, which is in line with the whole transaction volume in the whole Singapore market. But we only see a slight drop in 2023 quarter one compared to 2022 quarter four, which is by only 10%. But if we compare the 2022 quarter one, there was a 23% drop from 56 number of transactions in 2022 quarter one. But nevertheless, when you move down the chart to the terrace, semi-D and detached, you see an increase in terms of the volume for semi-D and detached. This is something interesting, but usually we see a lot more demand for the terrace houses, but now we see a lot more demand for semi-D and detached, while terrace has dropped like by 32% in total for 2023 quarter one compared to 2022 Q4. Let's jump into semi-D and see how it is like. Transaction value for semi-D, like I mentioned earlier, is the volume has increased, but then if you look at the value and the PSF, it has dropped. So this is something that we are a bit puzzled, because when there's demand, usually when the price will go up. But this we did a deep analysis on that. We saw that the transaction in terms of the semi-D in Katong has decreased a lot, but there's only one transacted in 2023 Q1. And also look at Siglap and Chuchat, especially for Chuchat. Look at the PSF on the right. It has dropped from 2,000 to 1,007, a good 15.8% drop. This is mainly due to there's one big plot of semi-D about 6,005 square feet that was only transacted at less than 1,001 PSF. Because it was just next to a Parkway East Hospital. So I guess that's the reason why the PSF has dropped so much for Chuchat. They pulled the overall value, and also the PSF dropped significantly. So that's all for me for District 15. I'm going to pass on to Michael to show you more on District 16.
Thank you, Justin. Before I share the three highlights, this is where the 16 is. We have got five subsectors, starting from the bottom left, Standard Lucky Height area. The landed houses here are very well spaced out, and they are of a higher value comparatively. On the right is the Q Drive Jalan Limau area. Based on previous quarter transaction, this is one area that always had got the most. It captured about 30 to 35% of the market share. And on the right is Eastwood rear area. The characteristic of this area is that about 50% of the landed houses are actually leasehold, with the balance freehold. And to the north of the Upper Changi Road, you've got the Tanah Merah Kecil and the Peakville area, served by Tanah Merah MRT station. Houses here, the value-wise, comparatively are lower. And the last area is the Guan Chun Harvey Avenue Sunbird area, which is actually closer to Simi MRT station. So this is District 16 coverage. Now, the three main sharing point includes the following: that terrace houses, the quantum actually has gone up from 13 to 15. And not only quantum has gone up, as highlighted by Willie earlier, the price of the houses, landed houses, terrace houses, as well as the PSF has also gone up, as you can see from this slide here. On an average, you are looking at 3.6 to 3.7 million for a terrace house. By the way, the lowest transaction in this quarter for 99 is about 2.9 million. So you can see that there is a vast difference, about 800,000. Okay, in terms of PSF, it has also gone up to this level, and that actually has contributed to the overall PSF level in the this district 16, right? If you look at the last column there, it's gone up to 1,006. Where are these transactions for terrace houses? I mentioned that Senate Lucky area are the high value, right? Normally there's transaction, the value is there. As you can see, it's an average about 4 million, which is well above the terrace of 3.5. And also the PSF on the right, you can see is on the high side. Okay. Now, next is that overall, we see increase in value in PSF as well in price. If you just make a so-called quick look at it, the transaction, by the way, are about the same last quarter and the previous quarter 4. We have got above 1,005 PSF 10 sales versus the previous quarter only 6 sales, right? So you can see that progressively property value on the rise, right? This is from PSF perspective. What about the value? Again, you can see down here, right? The value of 5 million and above. We have 8 sales, which comes up to 36% versus 5 sales in the previous quarter. So overall, really you can see, right? Volume may be about the same, but the price actually has gone up. And this brings me to my third point. Semi-D, for example, right? Although the volume dropped just marginally, but the value is always there. And you can see that we are looking at 5 million above kind of average prices. So compared to a terrace 3 over million. And PSFY, it has also gone up from 1,003 to 1,004. So overall, I would say, where, by the way, just to share, where are all the transactions that take place? As you can see, Standard Lucky Heights again, 5 over million. And then we have got the Q Drive area. You notice that whether it's terrace or whether it's semi-D, there's always transaction in this Q Drive Jalan Limau area, which I mentioned earlier that it command about 30 to 35% of the market share. And right now, as you can see, right, by the way, our highest transaction for the house in the last quarter is actually 6.2 million semi-D, which you see down here. And that's the highest that it is PSSY corresponding, we have seen that. So this is what that we are looking at for the prices. With that, I will hand it over to John, who will share with you District 19. John, please.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Okay, let's take a dive into District 20. I mean, for Northeast region, I'll be covering 19, 20, and 28. In lieu of the time, I try to speed up a little bit. Okay, so District 19, we've clustered them in the major clusters that make more sense. Most of our data actually is reflective of a combination of certain estates because due to the lower transactions. All right, so for District 19, these are the main clusters. Right, so District 19 remains one of the most robust in terms of the number of transactions. So you can see we have collated from since 2020, all the house types. So you see actually it has been a steady rise since 2020 in terms, let's take a look at terraces, for example, steadily hitting almost close to 4 million on average. But for the first time ever, and this is also in line with the semi-Ds, the prices have taken a fall, all right? Okay, so also for the PSF, so if you notice for the terraces as well, steady increase since 2020 all the way to Q4 of last year. Now also that's in line with the decline. So this trend for this terraces seems to be dominant, especially in the Northeast region. Later we'll cover also the same scenarios that's happening in District 20 and 28. All right, the next key finding that we have is for the number of transactions, okay? So it still maintains a very healthy range. Most of the transaction PSF seems to be hovering above 1,006, all right? So despite the lower volume, all right, you still see a healthy range of them being above 2,000 square feet. Okay, but the majority or the bulk of the transactions happens to be lower now, used to be 4 million and above, 4 to 5 million. Now for the first time, okay, it's shifting backwards to 3 to 4 million instead. Right, so this phenomenon is actually also quite rampant, more so in District 28. Later I'll cover. Okay, of course, the next best option would definitely be exploring 99 leasehold houses. So you can see also, despite the trend, 99 seems to be heading upwards. So with quite a good shift from 8 to 10 itself. Okay, District 20, this will be all the way from Yio Chu Kang, or spanning the entire Upper Thomson, all the way to the Westlake area. All right, so for first time also, we see that the average PSF, there's actually been a marginal decrease. So someone actually asked, I think, in the group chat for the number of transactions. So just to give you a reference, for District 20, quarter on quarter, from 11 to 13 terraces, semi-detached from 2 to 5. So we actually see a trend whereby there's more transactions for semi-Ds, and a lot of them happen to be also brand new. So in line with this chart, in fact, for Q4 of 2022, this exceptionally high PSF actually was due to only 2 semi-Ds being transacted, one of which is a brand new at a record high of 3,000 PSF. So this data actually we won't be too concerned. If you want to take some smoothing out, the decline is still going to be in the 10% range. Okay, what is interesting, because District 20, we have a lot of close proximity to schools, to amenities and nature reserves. So the only one to see a actual contra to the general market trend seems to be the area of the Sembawang Hills area. All right, unlike the rest, you do see that the appetite for higher quantum terraces, pardon the typo at the header, is actually for the terraces. But for the PSF itself, all right, for Sembawang Hills Estate, you see it is the only one that is actually declining. Okay, so this has some significance in terms of the appetite or the type of houses that is being transacted. And although across the board, you can see all the averages, Sembawang Hills still contributes to the most number of transactions for terraces. Just to give a reference, it's 9 transactions for last quarter. All right, the rest are quite sparse, between 3 to 4 transactions for the other areas. All right, so this will be another very useful insight, all right, for those who are looking to either buyers or sellers. So we have 2 of the larger, brand new units that's been transacted this quarter. Both are brand new, all right. Both also happen to be in the Sembawang Hills vicinity, all right. One is a semi-D, one is a corner terrace. So their land size is nothing to boast about, but being brand new. So one thing to note, you can take a look at the demand seems to be pointing towards houses with larger built up, right? The cost of time, to rebuild a house as opposed to a similar house that's been transacted also nearby for a much larger land size. All right, this is almost close to 4,000 square feet. And this is actually the record holder for this quarter for the lowest PSF, right? 1,255. So this is quantum-wise is 5 million, right? So definitely the consideration of time to transform this, to put in the work to rebuild or to go through your reconstruction to become something like either of this, seems like people are preferring, houses that are brand new. Right, District 28. All right, to be honest, 28 has been a nightmare to analyze in lieu of pollen collection. So this trend where the data will be skewed significantly in lieu of pollen collection, because we do factor in 99 leasehold, right? So for this analysis, I have extracted the data, taken out pollen collection, just to give a perspective. Pollen collection itself for this quarter, there are 8 transactions. So there are 6 terraces and 2 semi-Ds. So for District 28 itself, discounting the difference from pollen collection, actually District 28, although on paper it has a rise in volume, technically without pollen collection is stagnating. There's only a +1. Okay, so this is something to note. But one thing to consider also, with so many transactions happening in District 28 being brand new, a lot of times both buyers and sellers can be, kind of blindsided by the pricing. So we have dissected for this round 3 different houses at very similar qualities. All right. So on the left, you have all 3 are semi-Ds, by the way. Land size is approximately the same, 3,000-ish. On the left, you have one that is original condition. Of course, over the years, the owners have maintained. Right. You can see the disparity comparing to the center one, which has undergone some A&A and major facelift, so-called. So take it like a product life cycle, original facelifted model, and then version 2.0 on the right, which is a brand new. So each of it, you can see a significant jump of 1 million plus. Right. So when it comes to rightly pricing your house, every house is distinct and unique. Every house has its full untapped potential, and of course, the cost of time. Okay, and also here, the unusually high terraces PSF in District 28. This baffled me for a while, because what I see for District 28 in terms of PSF seems to be reflective of its brother and sister District 19 and District 20. But diving deeper into each of the transactions, okay, because these are very high, to be honest. Other than Luxus Hills, which is not surprising, the rest, even like Cactus, Begonia area, the PSF seems to be way higher than typical. So upon checking detailed, we noticed that all the average terraces size is actually below 2,000 square feet. So all this with not just taking the data that is being provided, off the internet, you see the prices, PSF are going up, but actually there's a reason behind it. So District 28 is more well known for larger plots, but in this quarter, we see the appetite increasing for those actually below 2,000 square feet, partially also because of the quantum. Most of them are below 4 million. Okay, and the last one is a very interesting case study. All right, this unit, there's only one detached that's been transacted at a very, very high PSF, and also the record quantum is actually in Tamarind Road. What was interesting, this was a new build sold in 2020. At that time, it was 6.6 million, right? So generally, you see based on the average trend, all right, from since 2020 until now, on average, 1/million on capital gains, all right? But what's really amazing is this house can still fetch today at 8.7, close to almost 2,000 square feet, almost new. So a lot goes into, the design elements and everything. So every house is really unique. Can this be replicated? Like, for example, my house was built 2 to 3 years ago. I'm going to capitalize 2 million on it. Maybe you really need to, analyze in detail, speak to your landed consultants about this. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass to Team Central, Cindric and Will to cover Central itself.
Thank you, Sean. So I'm going to dive you into more results about more details into the central region. So start off with D10. Okay, D10 again, we are segmented the area into 5 different zoning, all the way from 6th Avenue down to somewhere very close to Orchard, which is the 130 area. And of course, we also cover a bit on Holland and Tanglin area. So overall, you can see that the average PSF have dropped, where average value and PSF has continued to rise. Yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry. Your value have dropped, but your PSF continue to rise. So as you can see, all house type only for detached, only for the terrace houses, there's a rise in terms of value, but in terms of PSF, it drops. Yeah, but over here in the rest of the 3 other house types, for example, your semi-D, detached, and GCB, you can see in terms of price, if a drop, average price drops quite significantly, especially for detached as well as the GCB, but PSF continue to rise. As you can see, detached has rise as high as 26, almost 27%. Okay. Next, we're going to show you the average price, okay, for the quarter 4 last year. Okay, and this year Q1 Q1, you can see that the average price between house type transacted is within the 6 to close slightly below 50 mil. These are I would say right now today the market for the sales transacted price is almost quite flat for D10. That probably buyer are buying with more cautious, with their purchase. But you can see we start to have more and more smaller house type. This is there's a couple of units. There is a leasehold. 3 of the units sold, a couple of it is leasehold, and 1 of it is a freehold terrace house type that sold less than 5 million. Okay, and for leasehold property, leasehold landed, you can see there's a rise in terms of price as well as PSF. Okay, then the pushing factor are mainly due to the price and the cost. School, for example, Nanyang, of which there's 3 units that is sold within the Coronation and Kings area. Okay, mainly due to schools, the Nanyang primary schools. Okay, as you know, the freehold or leasehold 999 units there has been selling on the average of for example inter-terrace, they are right now calling somewhere about 5.5 million for a rundown inter-terrace, whereas for a normal condition semi-D are asking about 10 million. Yep. So next we are going over to D11. Okay, D11 is on the other part of D10, starting from Swiss Club all the way down to Novena. Of course, the most popular sector is always the Danyan area and the Novena site for D11. Okay, so for D11, something which is quite different from D10. You can see the average sales price, okay, the sales value has go up as high as close to 60%, and the average PSF has rise about close to 16.4% compared to last year, based on year to year and quarter to quarter. Okay, next, you can see more house type over here. Okay, so during the Q4 last year, so most of the house has transacted somewhere between the 6 mil to about 10 mil, slightly below 10 mil. But this quarter, you can see there's a slightly a bigger jump. More unit has transacted within this range for this Q1 this year. Okay, up to more than 20 million. Okay, the other thing I would like to contribute, so you can see there's also more house type that is transacted across the $3,000 PSF, okay, per square feet. So what are the main contributors? You can see brand new houses within the Novena sectors, mainly are brand new, and on top of it, about 33%, okay, are causing this new price or new PSF hike. Now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Cindric to illustrate more on the western area.
Okay, thanks, Will. Hi, I'm Cindric. I'm going to touch quickly on D21 and 23. So let's dive into it. Due to some factor, I'll try to go through quickly. Okay, so for District 21, we've segmented the area of houses into Upper Danyan, you have Jurong Kechil area, we have the Toh E area, and then lastly the Sunset area. Okay, so first of the 3 highlights I want to point out is that GCB for D21 continues to inch forward in terms of the PSF. As you can see over here, the average PSF for this quarter has gone up from 1,006 to 1,892 per square foot. Now this 1,892 is actually setting a new benchmark. The 1,892 PSF alone is already slightly more than 7% jump from the overall average of last year, 2022, which was about averaging at 1,766 square feet. So some of the factors, let's talk quickly about this, is why GCB are still popular. Is because you've heard the saying, I mean, today we're all talking about landed properties. So I'm sure you all have heard of the saying that landed properties are the one that holds the value the most. And it is also the most resistant to downward market trend. So within the same can also be said with regards to good class bungalow. The GCB then among the landed houses are the one that is the most resistance to downward market forces within all the various types of landed houses. All right. So of course, the next point is supply is low. Overall in Singapore, there are 70,000+, almost 80,000 landed properties, but GCB there are only about 2,800+ available. So when supply is low, normally, yeah, it helps to retain the value, and of course is kind of highly sought after. So and the other factor is, of course, both the buyers and sellers of this class of houses, they have very deep pockets. Okay, so that's why for them the prices to carry on increasing is not surprising. One more thing is the lure of owning one GCB. Okay, the lure of owning a GCB for the prestige will be there. Okay, for those who can afford it. So naturally, then those who can afford it, the demand will always be there. Okay, and now last of the pointers I can think of is GCB is also a good form of wealth preservation for the ultra high net worth buyers. So naturally, honestly, or rather, it's not surprising, you know, that GCB will continue to perform fairly well. Although we believe the volume will be muted, but that's yet to further down the road. I mean, that's yet we've yet to find out. So we'll find out more following the next few quarters down the road. All right, second point I want to point out is transaction volume rebound actually for after a muted last quarter. So you can see over here, there were 13 transactions versus 6 only for Q4 of last year, a growth of 117%. Interestingly, as Willie has mentioned, so the few district bucking the trend is D21. Across all the various house types, the transaction has actually increased across all house type versus, you know, other region. You've seen some different kind of performance results. However, I still want to highlight that if you compare it to Q1 of 2022, then it's actually not as fantastic. There was still decline. So there's still a drop versus last year Q1. Some of the reasons it could be the overall market sentiment right now is not as rosy as per Q1 of last year. Okay, of course, we all know that higher mortgage interest plays a part as well to create not so many transactions as per the Q1 of last year. And of course, there were also cooling measures, a couple of them implemented last quarter and this quarter itself. All right, so this could be a few contributing factor. All right, so and the third point I want to highlight regarding District 21 is majority of houses transacted were above 1,008 PSF, whereas, you know, you can see some of them still transacted within 1,006+ range last quarter. However, for this quarter, interestingly, most of them, okay, except one, were transacted above 1,008 per square foot. So one of the factors I can think of is D21 is still somewhat, a portion of it is still Bukit Timah area. Okay, so there could be some spilling over effect from the central area. Those looking, they wouldn't mind, you know, it's still Bukit Timah after all, so they could consider coming to District 21. Another factor is could be also school. School plays a big role because D21, there are also some very prestigious schools that buyers are looking for. Okay, so next I will move on to District 23. District 23, West Region. Okay, we have the 99-year leasehold. We class them under Burgundy and Verde. We have the Hillview cluster. We have the others, which are pretty problematic area because they really tend to skew the overall results, because for the others houses, their lease is only down to about 20 plus years lah. Okay, that's the Jalan Uji area, those houses. Okay, we have the Choa Chu Kang, and we have also the Chestnut cluster landed houses. Now, the first point I want to highlight is the average sales value and PSF are really showing signs of decline. This is actually comparing to the overall market is quite a not surprising sign. So that's why for D23, sorry, beg your pardon, it follows suits lah. Though the average value dropped not very significant, 1% and for the PSF has dropped about 8%. All right. And the next point I want to highlight is okay, this one is very interesting. For this, when I look at the figure, I had to take a double, triple take and really dive deeper into it. Because if you look at it, all the regions, sub-regions for the terrace houses, everyone has shown improvement in terms of the value. However, the average price has dropped. So when I saw this, I thought my data was salah. So I had to really dig into it. And then eventually I realized that actually the reason was because this quarter there were more low quantum transactions, low quantum houses transactions, which created a pull down effect on the overall average prices. So, right. So will this trend carry on because prices has gone higher, as what Willie has said, moving forward? Are we seeing the tide decreasing, lowering down? Of course, we need a few more quarters to analyze and then to see more, is this really the trend that we're moving forward? Could this be the start of the new trend? Well, come join us for the next quarter to find out more, right? So, and then the price brackets in terms of PSF has also shown a decline by a notch. So previous quarter wise, the bulk of the transaction were within 1,200, 1,002 PSF to 1,005 PSF. Whereas this quarter wise, almost the same amount of percentage of houses, the weightage wise, has moved down a notch to 1,001 PSF to 1,004 PSF. So once again, I'd like to say, is this going to be the trend going forward? This being the first quarter, such thing has happened over the many quarters. So I believe we'll be able to see a clearer picture once more results comes out in the next few months for the following quarters. All right, so that's all I have for you. I'll hand the time back to Lily.
Thank you, Cedric. Do you all better understand now why we say we cannot totally answer a question up front when people say, hey, Willie or Sean, Cedric, how is the market doing? Are the prices going upwards, downwards? Can you understand now, even with a simple question like this, sometimes we have to qualify further, right? So Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, are you all talking about by district? Are you talking about house type, etc., right? This is what I earlier mentioned, how fragmented, segmented the market is, okay? Despite the various so-called disparity in terms of the results, I hope by now you probably have also see some trends, okay? Which I'm gonna elaborate a bit further. Okay, so we don't have much time for Q&A. Thank you, by the way, for all the participation we have had. I think this is the most participative audience ever. So in the course, I think a lot of you are putting your questions in the chat. So feel free to put in the Q&A as well, right? My team and I are trying our best to answer. Now let's come to the topic of the day. Okay, is it time to finally stop waiting? Right, to stop waiting. Remember, I asked, this is quite an ambiguous question, right? It depends on who you are, etc. But I'll come to that in a while. But before I answer that, let's just take a look at Q1 first. What has actually happened? All right, with reference to, when it's not talking about anything, if you have attended our last webinar, All right, we have identified the 10 key levers which we feel, which we are confident that will affect the landed market in this year. All right, I won't go through each and every of this. All right, so this should not be unfamiliar topics to you. But what we're going to do now is to see among these 10 topics, what has changed in the last quarter versus in January. Okay, now global local economy. This is fresh off the news just of today, in fact, a few hours ago. The Singapore economy has grown only 0.1%. I say 0.1 because there were a lot of estimates by government, by economies as well. They expect us to grow about 0.5 to 0.6. All right. This is already what is undeniable. This is a significant slowdown from 2.1% in the previous quarter. Okay. So obviously this is something, although it's expected to slow, but it has not performed as well. All right. This will be a dampener, I think, on the landed market performance. Next, interest rate and inflation. I think it has remained relatively unchanged. We still have interest rate now hovering about 4%. I think what is interesting is coming out, MAS has come up to say about tightening or stopping of the tightening of the monetary policy. But for the first quarter, nothing much has changed. Inflation numbers have also been kept. I believe now it's around 5%. All right. So it has not changed much versus the previous quarter. So we won't touch into it. Now, cooling measures. Okay, now in January, when we expressed this, we frankly did not expect another round, all right, or another round of cooling measures to come. And by these cooling measures, I will put a very big inverted commas because it's been, well, many say disguised, right, as a budget so-called consideration. Okay, so we all know on 14th of February, during the budget announcements, there's an announcement on the increase in buyer stamp duty. What is different with buyer stamp duty versus ABSD or previous rounds of cooling measures is that buyer stamp duty affects every purchase, all right, every transaction. Okay, so we all know the formulas. This is basically, it means that any property transacted above $1.5 million will see a significant increase, right, from 3 to 4%. And then it's actually from the next 1.5 million is actually 5% in excess of 3 million, where most, if not all, landed properties our price set actually goes up to 6%. Right. So we have actually done a simulation, right? Simulation starting from 3 million all the way to 50 million. So you can see this is the old buyer stamp duty. This is the new buyer stamp duty applying the formula. And you can see the red column. This is the incremental buyer stamp duty that a buyer has to pay. Right. For instance, you're buying a $3 million property. Now, instead of paying 104,000, you pay about 120,000. Incremental is about 15,000. Right. If you buy a $10 million property, your incremental buyer stamp duty, which is now about 5.4 million, is 155,000. Now, the magic question now, therefore, is this considered a big enough deterrent? Okay, in terms of incremental cost. Now, we have different views on the ground. Some feel that, well, these people are already so rich, assuming I'm referring to all the buyers here. If you're prepared to pay for a $10 million property, what is another 155,000, right? I have a GCB client who say, oh, 50 million. If you have 50 million, now let's say this is about $1 million. You have 50 million, you have 51, right? You have 49, you have 50 million, so to speak. Whereas for some other buyers, the price is really quite high, for example. So this incremental cost may deter a lot of buyers. Now, this is relatively a new measure, and we are talking about just 1.5 months of exposure to this. I think the next couple of quarters will be interesting to see what is the longer term effect on this, right? And another cooling measure, now this is where the inverted commas come in, all right? So is this 99.1 dues? I won't go too much into the details. For those who are not familiar, can ask the agents. This is a very common, very hot topic actually since this was released, okay? Now you'll be asking what is implications of this to the landed market? Not a direct implication, but assuming there is a substantial number of 99.1 dues that goes on among landed upgraders who are now owning condos which are transacted using these dues. All right. So assuming the number is big, I don't have figures. Nobody has figures to say, but assuming a lot of these people, they start to, because I think the articles that come up are very so-called strong worded. It's nothing short of a warning, I think, by the authorities. So if more and more people start to come clean, either they are caught or they volunteer on this tax, so-called avoidance, and start to pay the penalty for this, you can imagine the decline in the number of these landed upgraders, right, for condo buyers. All right, so this remains again to be seen, and we basically wish everyone, again, on behalf of everyone who is involved in this, to also come clean and to respond to IRAS directly. All right. Now, next is the post-COVID demand. We have, of course, enjoyed this, I would say, windfall, but basically this momentum, okay, for almost a good 2 full years. But slowly, okay, we are seeing that this momentum has slowed down, right? We wouldn't say this is actually a bad thing in terms of volume compared to previous years, all right? Sorry, compared to in the past or average. It's just that we had 2 good years or 2 years where the transaction volume is higher than normal, all right? This is a very unlikely phenomenon. And now what we're seeing is that we are going back to normal. But what is important is the sentiments on the ground, all right, in this recent survey, is that more than half the Singaporeans seem, all right, to be more determined, so seem to be discouraged by making any progression, house transition plans now, right? Especially when it comes to purchasing home. With this should naturally mean a delay, or a drop in terms of the demand, all right, of landed properties, and that may have a downward pressure, all right? On the note of construction supply chain costs, we have not heard or seen any significant increase, except for the fact that the land betterment charge, or what we call a development charge, all right, has continued to rise, and now is being risen by 0.3%, okay, for landed properties. You can see on this side, all right, so over here, sorry, for landed is 0.4%, okay, compared to non-landed at 0.3%. This will again add on to the cost of basically, especially you're buying an old house and then you want to rebuild it. Okay. Next, the rental market. Depending on whether you're a landlord or tenant, you might be happy, not happy with the recent hike. But what we are seeing now, especially towards the end of February and of course, end of March, is that we are starting to see that the volume, okay, the transaction volume of rentals will come down, and it is now widely acknowledged that the market may have peaked. Again, why is this significant or relevant is that we did mention the other time that a lot of landed owners are now hesitant or were hesitant to actually sell their properties because they're collecting abnormally high rentals, all right? Especially we see quite a lot in basically District 10, 11, the bungalows, even the GCBs as well. But if rent were to go back to normal, would it still be as attractive for the owners to hold on to exceptionally high price expectations, all right? I probably have given you examples before where owners are easily rationalizing that, hey, if I could collect 100,000 or $1 million in rent every year, and with property market asset price going up, why should I sell at today's current price? I need to factor in the opportunity cost, all right, of losing the rental, as well as the capital appreciation gain. Okay, so if this starts to go back to normal, then we will see a more balanced so-called motivation for owners who are either thinking of renting or to sell. Right now, new condo launches always has an indirect impact, okay, because it kind of has there's always this indirect comparison that will affect actually condo upgraders. All right, if you're staying in the resale condo now, should you buy a intermediate terrace or cluster or 99 years, the new condo launch prices and basically the success rate will always have an impact. Okay, so you can see now generally this year, okay, the launches so far has achieved either expected or higher than expected results. Okay, so these are the 2 recent ones. There was also another one in January as well that sold basically half, if not more than half. All right, so that kind of actually gave the residential market necessary boost, okay, to give a boost of confidence that the residential market, despite the sky high or record high prices, still has demand, right, for them. Okay, no change in the influx of foreigners as of now, all right, unless there's some change in immigration policies or we see more basically Chinese, although now there are some talks about tenants moving out, more Chinese coming in, etc. All right, maybe you can wait till the next quarter. Next will be en bloc. Okay, what has happened in en bloc cycle? Like we mentioned earlier in the last seminar or webinar, is that en bloc always has, sometimes, especially when your value is quite high, has a direct boost to the demand for landed properties. Okay, so among the many, well, of course, we have seen the great results of Mayor Park. Congratulations. I myself, I met two recipients of this en bloc in the houses that we are marketing in District 15. They are all pocketing between 5.25 to 7.26 million with this amount. And one of them that I spoke to actually has really is getting the higher amount of 7.26. With this, you can easily buy a District 15 semi-D, District 14 or 16 semi-D, if not detached. Something that we saw about 4 to 5 years ago when Amber Park, right, was the first one to spark off the big en bloc development craze, and a lot of the recipients there were getting $4.5 million, enough then at the point of time to get a semi-D. Okay. However, besides at Mayor Park, majority of the collective sale or en bloc attempts have, however, not been successful. Right? However, not been successful. Had this gone through many of these projects, we will expect a incremental or surge of demand or so-called capital flow into the resale market, and of course, landed will be one of the recipients for that. All right. So this a relatively low success rate of en bloc is not going to help basically the landed market or the prices in the long run. Okay. So with these 10 factors in mind, so let's come back to the question. Okay. For us to answer this, whether it is time to finally stop waiting, there are a few questions we need to ask. Firstly is, are you a buyer or a seller? Right? Obviously, we always think both. A lot of people think they are on both sides of the equation, right? If it's a good time for a buyer to buy, it might not be the best time for a seller to sell, so to speak. It also depends on where, all right, and what price range. Okay, so let's first take a look at basically if you are a buyer or seller. Based on what you saw just now, it's about 50-50 here. So what I'm going to show next should be quite relevant to all of you. All right. So, oh, sorry, just now was mentioned whether you're new. Okay, maybe now let's launch this poll. Okay. Please let us know whether you are planning to buy or sell a landed property in this year, right? Whether it's the next 3 months, next 6 months, next 9 months, it does not matter, all right? This is just a simple poll for us to understand on the sentiments now. Are there people also, there's also a sell and buy, obviously because of ABSD, some of you, a lot of our clients, for example, they need to sell to buy, all right? Or to avoid ABSD. Some have no plans, okay, good. So we have, majority, about 45% are actually thinking of buying, 48% now. Some are thinking of selling, some thinking of doing both at the same time, no plans at all. The no plans at all are your fellow agents, or are you here for knowledge? Well, anyway, happy to share all the time, all right? Nonetheless, by the way. Okay, let me end the poll. Let me just show you the results. Let me see if I can. Okay, this is the poll results, right? So about 50% are thinking of buying, so we're more buyers here. Very naturally, when you're buying, you are become an invested so-called stakeholder, and you're more interested to know what's going to happen, right? So now the question to this, again, we don't have a direct answer, but what we want to ask, okay, are all these considerations, okay? If you're a buyer, whether you're a buyer or seller, first question is the why. Are you planning to move because of market conditions? Meaning that if the market goes up as a buyer, right, you don't want to buy, or you only enter when the market is down, same as the seller as well. Or are you basing your decision based on family needs? Okay, if you want to move to a desired school because you need to downsize because your children have moved out, or you have said you have moved house, you want to move closer to your new workplace, move office, move to a new workplace, you can climb up, etc. Okay, I think that could be more important for you to think about rather than actually moving in tandem with the market, especially if you are doing both at the same time, buying and selling, because you'll be entering and exiting the market 3 to 6 months, and you will not see a lot of difference. Okay. Next is the entrance and exit, right? Are you moving now from one landed to another? I think there's about 14% of you, right? If so, then you do not have to be too concerned. Okay. Or is it from a non-landed to a landed? That means you're first-time upgrader, vice versa. Are you downsizing from a landed and moving to basically exiting the landed market altogether? Therefore, you may want to maximize the value of this, basically your pot of gold, right? Before you then downsize maybe to HDB or condo, right? These are all important points. Next is about scaling. Okay, this is a very interesting question because a lot of our clients are doing this. Are you upgrading from a terrace to a semi-D to a detached, right? If so, in an upwards market, then you better do early, right? Because if the price continues to go up, you'll be paying significantly more in terms of quantum for a bigger landed house, right? Even though you're giving up the chance to earn more from your smaller house. Or are you downsizing where the reverse could be true, all right? And important is timing. Do you really need, or do you really have to move within the next few months, right? Are you timing the market, or are you timing basically within your own family needs? These are all questions and considerations. I think we discuss a lot with a lot of our clients, and if this is the first time you're talking to us, I think it deserves a lot more so-called insight or input or discussion about this, right? Rather than basing your decision, and because this is our experience, we've never had many clients that they come because they're not buying a landed property as a investment property. It's like, oh, market goes up, therefore I should sell, right? And then to basically reinvest. A lot of them, majority of them are actually buying for their own stay, where the non-financial needs will come through. Okay, right. Next is where. Okay, this is where I think for the first time we are actually going very deep, a lot deeper into the districts and regions. Of course, we have shown you this chart earlier, all right? I won't go through again. This is basically based on PSF, but a lot of you might be sitting out there and saying, really, what does 2002 mean, all right, per square feet in District 10? What does 1,007 in District 14 will mean to you? Because I have a limited budget. Now, affordability is on everyone's mind, all right, especially when I think resources in terms of banking, interest rates, all these are going up. I think everyone, whether it's 5 million, 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, I think affordability and the quantum is increasingly becoming a concern. To answer this, we've decided actually to delve deeper, all right, to show actually the various districts, okay, in a different way. Now, this is a very comprehensive chart. So you have our main, we call this the core districts, right? The core districts, the 11 districts, which makes up about 85%. We have the others, we call this others, okay? Pardon us if you stay in any of this gray area, whether in District 4, etc. They are not included just solely because they don't make numbers in terms of the volume of transactions, okay? So what you can see here is basically last quarter, this quarter, all right? The two indices put here is actually the average price, all right, and then the average size. I think my teammates just now, a lot of them have mentioned, all right, when you see a disparity in terms of the PSF and in terms of basically the price, a lot of the indication in between is actually the size, okay, the size of the property. You could, for instance, here see that District 10, all right, just now we see that the price has increased significantly, but do you know that the average size transacted has reduced from 5,003 to 4,002? Okay, this is a 14% drop, for instance, okay? Coming to, for example, I pick up another example from the non-core districts. So, for example, someone asked about District 17 in the query just now, right? So, District 17, for example, average price used to be 3.6 million, okay, a size of 4,002. But in just one quarter, you see the price dropped significantly to 2.8 and 2001. Again, why this could be, and this is definitely due to basically very outlier so-called statistics. That's one of the reasons why we prefer not to overanalyze some of these non-core districts, all right? But on the whole, what are some of the conclusions we can make? Okay, first, let's take a look, right? Now, in total Singapore, across all districts, okay, all districts, is that you will see that the average price has increased from 5.8 million, all right, to 6.6 million, right? 5.8 to 6.6 million, okay? And the average size has also increased from 3,400 square feet, now it's about 3,007. So in this quarter, okay, we see buyers buying larger houses, okay, at higher prices, right? Larger houses, about 8% in average size has been transacted at higher average price, okay, in general. Okay, so these are some of the examples that have hit the news. These are prominent transactions and they are all large plots. One is 25,000 and one is more than 10,000. Of course, these are just so-called the more prominent ones because due to the size or due to the purpose of this, for example, this goes to charity, right? But we do see across the board larger houses being sold. Okay, what's the next thing that we can point out is if you look at the core districts and the non-core districts, you can see that the core districts has been very consistent in terms of an increase in price and average size, right? So, but for the non-core, you see that even though average price has gone up, but people are actually buying smaller units in the non-core districts, okay? Thereby, again, supporting the fact that actually the core districts still reflect actually the market sentiments of the market movement a lot better, or because the core districts remain as the more popular so-called options among a lot of landed landed buyers. All right. So the core districts by 80%, they led the growth, and the average size is this. Non-core is 12% and 11%. Right. Next observation, take a look at the blue ones. Now the blue ones are where you see improvement, all right, or a increase in terms of both average price and average size. So it goes from District 11, basically almost the entire East region, excuse me, okay, and also in the non-core you have District 9 as well as District 26 as well, okay. The reason why we ask you that question is we cannot just look at the average performance of the entire market, all right, or the entire region. When you are about to make your decision and when pricing or affordability is an issue, this specific region, also district results will be important to you, okay. So districts that have done the best, okay, both average price and size are 9, 10, 11, etc., right? And then conversely, districts that have actually declined in both the average price and average size. All right, so so you have District 10, you have 19, 20, etc. Okay, so and so forth. Have you started to see some pattern? If you have, please tell me, because I don't. All right, that you can see how distinct and how varied that the performance of landed properties across different types. We have been analyzing volume, PSF. Now, once we put in 2 more indices, you realize that it is becoming a more and more fragmented in terms of the performance. Okay. Next is we talk about affordability is price range. Okay, what are you buying? What is your budget? Is your budget 4 to 5 million? Is your budget 7 to 8? Is your budget above 10? All right. Does that mean, will that change your decision? Okay, let's take a look. This is again another chart that we have never shown before, but we have analyzed internally, is that we have actually put in transactions across all districts, all right? The price range of all the transactions that have been done. We have the below 3 million and of course the above 50 million and the in-betweens, right? And the in-betweens. A lot of numbers to digest here, but then let's just take a look at some of the key ones, okay? So first is the volume, all right? First is the volume. So if you can see the yellow ones, these are basically, if I can put, these are more entry level, below 5 million. And then you have the 5 to 10 million, and then you have above 10 million. All right. If I were to cluster them together, can you see a pattern? All right. Can you see a pattern? Okay. That under 5 million, you actually see a drop in the volume. All right. 17% less transactions or houses were sold in this quarter. In the 5 to 10 million, you see an increase in demand of 8%. All right. What is the most interesting is you see actually houses above $10 million by almost a increase by almost 3-fold. Okay. You can see even those that's above $50 million, of course, this is a smaller number from 1 to 4, right? But you see even the basically 20 to 40 million, 15, 20 million as well. All right. So if the budget, if I were to paraphrase what's one of the cabinets of ministers I mentioned, if the budget new initiative is about redistribution of wealth, I think this has either successfully stopped it because he has actually done the reverse, because it means that those entry-level landed buyers are now basically financially more stretched and they are now stopping or actually declining in terms of the demand. But you see the rich, right, especially those above 10 million, so to speak, not stopping in their tracks to purchase their next landed property. In fact, more and more are doing so. Okay, I've heard enough on the ground from personal clients and also from leads that we meet during viewings, is that some of the rich or wealthy people, they believe when the market is slow, that is the best time to strike. All right, that's the best time to strike. They don't enter when the market is robust the last few years. They enter when they see that there's a lot more opportunities. There's a lot more so-called listings. Someone just asked just now, do we see more listings? Yes, all right, more listings in the market. So there are more choices compared to last time. Owners can be more realistic. That's when they decide to come into the market. Okay. Next observation we see, okay, is that below 3 million, you can see them, the slow decline, and we call eventual extinction, right? Eventual extinction of below 3 million. It has continued to decline further by 30%, almost 40%. Now it's almost only 35 units. Not of many years ago, all right, the below 3 million was one of the biggest contributor in terms of the volume, right? So continuous decline. And next will be the very interesting, the $3 to $8 million, all right, across all districts. This is the most popular price range now. All right, almost 3/4 of all transactions in all districts are actually in this area, right? So I'm sure a lot of you, especially the buyers who account says that if your budget falls between 3 to 8, then you are one of the 3/4 of the most landed transactions or buyers. Okay, but the average price have remained relatively stable. Okay, and the 15 million to 20 million. Okay, these are mainly the newly built houses. they dominate the price increment. When I say dominate, if you take a look, they dominate in terms of volume, they dominate in terms of per square feet, right? PSF is almost doubled, okay? Just give you an indication, it used to be 1,003. So in the past, people were buying the older houses, for example, to rebuild. Now you see this being actually so-called almost like 2,000 per square feet. It's doubled, all right? Average price, okay, has gone up. And the size have gone down because what used to be in this range are older houses, some are GCBs. Now they're actually newer houses at a fraction, right, of the older houses sizes. Yet you see a lot of people buying all this brand new house. I believe my colleagues, Will and Cindric, and to a certain extent, Justin mentioned that, all right, in their respective districts and transactions. Okay. Next is, what are the current market sentiments now? Again, this is quite interesting. So again, someone is asking, I think you asked a very good question. Besides the number of listings that we have now, would you be interested to know among all the sellers in the last quarter, whether asking prices have gone up or down, right? Maybe some of you are sellers here. Maybe you're part of this in the survey, all right, or in this. So what we've attempted to do is to quantify this as much as we can. So we've done a sampling, okay, of 50 houses, 50 listings, okay, 50 listings in our database that reflects proportionally basically the contribution to all the transactions. Like District 10, all right, is 3 out of 10 is about 6%. Sorry, 6%, yes, of all transactions, etc., etc. You have 15 and all this, all right? So we put all this, these are all random. We have seen price changes. For example, you can see the first one, Coronation Road, this was 21.8, and then now currently has gone up. You also will see some, like for example, this one, Dix Road, for example, it was asking 6.2, now it has come down, okay? And then this is the change. If you were to tabulate all this, make a guess. Do you think the asking prices have gone up or down? Unless you have a calculator eyes or whatever, yeah, we're given 50. Make a guess whether it's up or down, right? Let's take a look. Okay, so I put everything together to summarize again. The average asking price in the past, okay, when I say the past, it's probably a quarter or up to 3 months ago, was about 8.37. Okay, currently the latest asking price is now 8.35. Okay, so overall, you don't see a change. Sigh of relief to both sellers, I think. Otherwise, if you're selling now, obviously you don't want your fellow competitors to drop their price, right? So for buyers, maybe you're disappointed, you expect asking price to drop, okay? But you can see that generally, the average change is flat, okay? It's flat. However, across the various districts, you can see that District 11 is the most, increased the most or the most optimistic, okay? You can see average price have increased by about 6%. Right. On the other hand, you will see the more pessimistic, pardon me if I use the word, right, declining the most is the West region. The price have dropped by 3%, and the Northeast region, right? Northeast region was 6 and 3% for Northeast region. West region is about 4%, 3%. The rest are relatively flat, right? The rest are relatively flat. So for buyers thinking that, oh, the prices have gone down and stuff, this is a good sampling. We could increase the sample to 100 if we need to, right, to explain this, but there's enough sample size for us to know that generally we are not seeing a lot of changes in the asking prices. Okay. So to sum it up, okay, based on all this information, let's not forget basically again the recap, right? The 10 levers of the landed market. So you have those that actually pulls down, right? Some of this, and then those that helps to actually all these 10 factors can actually pull the landed market prices in different ways. Right. What is important is that we need to continue to monitor this, or to monitor this in the next 3 months for us to see the impact on that. But again, to reiterate, what is the most important is basically your needs. Okay, my team and I strongly advocate that the changing of a house transition, whether you're upgrading, downsizing, has to do most importantly with your needs versus the market conditions, because one can never fully time the market. All right. So to answer this question now, is it time to finally stop waiting? What do you think is the answer? Okay, first I want to bring on a term called cautious optimism. I think our dear government loves to say this, right? When things are not doing as well, or the road ahead is not very clear, but there's still light at the end of the tunnel, you hear this term, cautious optimism, right? It's something that is very commonly used, and is to inject a sense of basically positivity. But from our team, what we would want to modify further, or to summarize to all our buyers and sellers, okay, is to be opportunistic. So instead of being cautious, let's be opportunistic, and instead of being optimistic, I think let's be real, right? Let's be real is that we cannot run away from the fact, for example, for sellers, right, that the market is not going to be as robust as before. If you're going to ask 5-10% higher than your competitors, you're not going to get a buyer, you're not going to get an offer, right? Same for buyers as well. If you think the price is going to drop, it's going to crash, I would like you to understand and take a look at all the numbers we presented so far, right? Despite all the distortion, generally the market is still quite healthy and quite strong. What you can do, however, as a buyer and seller, or what you should do, is that you have to be more opportunistic, and not by opportunistic doesn't mean you have to make more money, but you have to then be more careful. You have to be more discerning in terms of your decisions, right? Whether it's across house types, across the different regions, etc. All right. So this is, I think, our best advice to every one of you. Of course, with this, you say, really, how can I do this, right? Because now the market is moving a lot in pulling in different directions. You would therefore must basically pay a lot more attention, get to know, study the market more, if not get to know people who know, right? Go to your lender consultants who invited you, or go to lender so-called agents who are actually focused on that to give you the relevant insights. So this is my last slide. Okay, to conclude, after almost 1.5 hours, is that amidst a more gloomy, okay, I think we can all say it's more gloomy than rosy compared to various quarters, the transaction volume has still grown by 5.3%, almost 1,009 now per square feet. Volume has declined. Okay, so among this, the detached is leading the value growth, almost 20.9%. Semi-Ds have, however, declined the most, all right, in volume is minus 15% versus last quarter, and almost half of the same period last year, right? Now, what is interesting to note is that higher value transactions are increasing, and conversely, lower value transactions are decreasing. They are basically moving in different directions. All right. So you talk about, so this reflects actually more resistance from buyers who are constrained by affordability challenges. So those who are affected by the rise in interest rate, etc. Okay, and you will find basically the entry level transactions becoming more and more difficult. All right, and also there's continued resilience. Okay, in the high-end landed property market, we have seen some of these transactions earlier. Okay. While long-term prospects again remain very positive, I think deviation in the performance across the various districts is becoming more and more startling, if not distinct. Okay, so this means there's a lot more opportunities for both buyers and sellers, and of course the next quarter's performance will shed more light. Okay, and then do stay tuned, of course, sign up, and we hope to be able to see more clarity. Okay, last but not least, and this has always been, I think, our so-called our belief and our values. Okay, is that both sellers and buyers, please make your next move based on your personal and family needs rather than market conditions. Especially if you're buying, selling basically around 3 months or 6 months difference, because you will not be the price change will not be very drastic, especially in the landed market. Okay, and a continued sensitivity to the macro environment, like the 10 factors that we mentioned. And more importantly now, a deeper understanding of the landed market's micro factors, those that my teammates and I have shared, presented, and shed some light, will remain very important to make the right decision. Okay, with this, I shall end today's webinar.